Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the Paddock Talk podcast channel. As you mentioned earlier, we're not just going to be doing podcasts, we are actually also going to be doing some shorter videos for the channel. And today we're bringing you our reaction to the McLaren MC35M just being released. Let's get straight into it. What do you guys think?
I'd say for a start, I think it's not that the livery's quite disappointing, really. I think we're all in agreement of that. It's pretty much the exact same as last year. Obviously, they've kept the We Racers one sort of theme to it, the sort of rainbow colours on the side pod. The road is a bit more blue on the front wing, but apart from that, it's a bit lackluster. I mean, obviously on an aerial pan, obviously you can from an aerial shot looking over the car. Obviously, you can see the difference that the floor's made, looking a bit smaller on the floor and a bit more jagged. But I think apart from that, it's really a bit similar really to last year. I'm quite let down.
Yeah, when you wait 40 minutes for a reveal of the car, you expect at least some major alterations, but it's pretty much the same basis as last year. They said they've changed a bit with the re-racers one rainbow. It's quite implemented quite nicely actually. To be fair to them, and then the nose cone they've changed it to the blue. But other than that, I'm a fan of the papaya. I didn't mind last year's livery, so I'm not that fussed in general that they kept it the same, but it's just a bit of a disappointment when it seems to be a common occurrence these days that teams are playing it very safe. But we saw with Renault and Red Bull over the years, they've kept the same livery for quite a number of seasons now. And you thought McLaren, being the team they are, quite a fan-oriented team, that they might mix it up quite a bit this year, but it seems they've kept it safe heading into 2021.
Yeah, I mean, I think there's definitely an argument for, keeping it the same and, building that sort of brand. Their brand is papaya and blue. But yeah, as you say, they could have done something more. All I can see is they've added a blue strip going down to the from the side down into the nose cone and a blue bit on the nose as well. And like you say, they've kept the rainbow, which is fair enough, because F1 themselves are dropping that. So for McLaren to keep it, that's fair enough. But yeah, I think they could have done a bit more, and I think they're keeping that matte finish as well.
I thought that'd be a bit more black and silver, maybe. I thought,
Yeah,
or at least a bit more black. I think they could have implemented that.
Yeah, because their merch was sort of stripy, wasn't it? And there are a few stripes on it.
Yeah.
And so we were thinking sort of more maybe they drop a bit of the blue and go for sort of a darker grey and orange, but no, they kept it.
Yeah, I saw one thing. Obviously, people have mentioned quite a lot about obviously because they've changed to the Mercedes power plant for this season. A lot of people commenting about obviously on the merchandise. There's quite a lack of Mercedes branding on the merchandise.
It's not on the car either, as far as I can see.
So what I think,
there's no Mercedes through
yeah,
the images.
So I think what I personally believe it's down to is obviously the fact that now, compared to McLaren back when they were last partnered with Mercedes, I think on like a sort of marketing scale, McLaren and Mercedes in some areas are quite competitive in terms of like the road cars they produce. So I don't think McLaren really want to kind of promote Mercedes on the side of their cars. But yeah, as you guys have pretty much implemented, it's not much change really. And I didn't like last year's livery. I don't like the livery design, to be honest. I prefer 2019 and 2018, to be quite frank. Yeah, it's good. Hopefully 2022 is a year where obviously the cars change a lot, so hopefully so does the livery.
Kind of wrap up this segment, I think it'd be fair to say that the McLaren livery is at best a 6 or a 7 out of 10. There's nothing much wrong with it. It looks good on track, as we saw last year, but there was definitely more potential for them to exploit, I think. Anyway, now we are going to introduce you to Ryan, who will hopefully be bringing out a full analysis of every 2021 car that is launched this winter, starting off with the McLaren MCL35M.
So, McLaren are the first team to unveil their new car for the upcoming season. The MCL35M is largely a continuation of the 2020 Challenger, however, there are some areas on the car that are worth talking about. Firstly, an area that was a large talking point in the run-up to the new season was the technical challenge imposed by the new regulations regarding the floor. The area that has been cut off for this year was critical in how the teams prevented tyre squirt, which is the turbulent air generated by the wheels, from negatively affecting the performance of the diffuser. Unfortunately, McLaren have only shown us a very bare bones render of this area, so there isn't much to say at the moment, but what we can see is a small lip running alongside the rear tyre, and what this will do is generate a tip vortex that should draw some of the tyre squirt away from the diffuser in the path shown by the blue arrow. I'll be very surprised if we didn't see more elements being introduced to this area as we get into testing. McLaren have yet again opted for the Mercedes-style philosophy of having a long wheelbase and a low rake angle. This philosophy is beneficial because the low rake angle fundamentally reduces drag, and the long wheelbase gives the car more stability in medium and high speed corners. But this comes at a cost in agility. The long wheelbase also provides the car with a larger floor area, which further improves downforce. On top of this, I think the new floor regulations favours this design philosophy, as you effectively lose less floor area compared to the typical Red Bull philosophy of a shorter wheelbase. Now we move to the front of the car. The nose cone design that we saw last year has been brought forward into this season, with only minor changes made to the very front tip. The Mercedes-style cape also makes a return, as indicated by the green arrow. McLaren have continued to use their high-mounted suspension that they introduced last year, and this benefits the design of the car, as the suspension members will not interfere with the airflow towards the barge boards as much. The largest area of change on the 2021 McLaren was the addition of the Mercedes power unit. Starting off with a side view of the MCL35M, I've outlined the general shape of the car using red and green lines. What is immediately clear is how they have much less of an undercut around the power unit as they did last year. However, the engine packaging is generally lower than it was last year, and this will help them lower the car's centre of gravity. Although an undercut around the engine has been reduced, the undercut underneath the side pods appears to be greater, as I've shown using a red line just to the left of the barge board. The more that the teams are able to undercut their bodywork, the more space they have to be able to treat the air approaching the rear of the car, and this treatment is even more critical with the new floor regulations. It's also worth noting that the barge board assembly, as seen in the launch material, appears to be virtually identical to that of last year's. Now what we can see is the top view of the MCL35M, and I've highlighted the outline of the bodywork using a red line. What becomes apparent is that the side pod structures are significantly narrower than what they were last year, and this could be due to the Mercedes engine requiring less cooling and subsequently smaller air intakes than the Renault engine did. But when we move to the rear of the car, we can see large similarities to what we saw on the Mercedes W11, with a slightly larger rear end, but overall a narrow body. The green line indicates the transition of the base of the engine cover to the vertical section over the air intake, and this streamlined shape signals to me that the McLaren team did not run into too many issues when integrating the new engine into the chassis design. Overall, I'm looking forward to see how McLaren get on this year and how much they'll be able to commit to the development of this year's car, or whether they'll focus predominantly on 2022. I have little doubt that the McLaren team will be fighting for the best of the rest spots again this year, but only time will tell. And that concludes my analysis of the McLaren MCL35M, and I'll now hand you back to the guys at the Paddock Talk podcast.
Thanks to Ryan for covering that. We hope you enjoyed that breakdown of McLaren's new challenger for this season. This will be the first of many shorter length videos we will be releasing on the channel over the coming weeks and months, starting with the car launches for all 10 teams. Nevertheless, the podcast will be back this week. We hope to continue bringing that to you weekly. That's when we will see you next time on the Paddock Talk channel.